Hello, my name is Barbara Gay. On behalf of the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County and my co-host, Susan Pertnoy, I'd like to welcome you to our program, MOSAIC.
Our special focus today is the American Joint Distribution Committee, affectionately known as the Joint, our partnership agency overseas. We'll be back with our special guests and our program after this brief message.
What if you could change the world? You can. We can do it together. With the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, you are here, and we are all connected. Together, we can enrich Jewish life, care for vulnerable populations, and build global Jewish community. That's what we do, every day, here at home and around the globe.
Welcome back, and welcome Ben Gordon, a board member of the JDC, and Jonathan Chain, president of Temple Judea. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today to talk about the JDC. Now, the JDC happens to be the largest international Jewish humanitarian organization in the world. Why are you involved? Ben.
So, thank you. Well, pleasure to be here. For me, it's very simple. I always grew up with the values instilled in me that when you have an opportunity to help somebody to make an impact, you take that opportunity. And unfortunately, we live in a world where there are great needs, but also great opportunities to make an impact. When I was in Israel as a high school senior, I remember being in a high school in Israel program. It was May of 1991. There were planes flying overhead, 5 in the morning, and I wondered what could possibly be going on. Well, it turns out that, of course, that was the airlift of Jews out of Ethiopia into Israel. I later discovered that the JDC had played a vital part in helping to make that happen. And one of the things that I resolved to do at that moment is I saw this modern miracle, these Jews from Ethiopia getting the opportunity to come to their homeland, escape the war of Ethiopia, and come to Israel. I resolved that I wanted to be a part of this renaissance, this rebirth of Jewish life in the Jewish world.
That was actually a remarkable program that you witnessed firsthand.
Yes, thank you.
And how about you, Jonathan? What motivated you?
It was instilled in me at an early age to be involved with the community. In 2007, I had the opportunity to travel to St. Petersburg, Russia with a joint Federation JDC mission, where I had the opportunity to view firsthand the work that JDC does in St. Petersburg, the support they provide to the elderly population there who are suffering from just abject poverty. And it was that mission that made me realize the important work that the JDC does around the world. And since that time, I've wanted to become more involved with the JDC. I had the opportunity to travel with Ben to Israel to view other JDC programs. And when you see it firsthand, when you have your feet on the ground and you witness the work that they do, it's difficult to come back and not want to be more involved.
Can you elaborate a little bit about what it's like for the community to be under siege of rocket in an imminent time frame where they have to run for shelter? Tell us about that. I know you saw that.
Absolutely. We had the opportunity to travel south to Sderot, which is in the southern part of Israel, just off the Gaza Strip, just prior to the Hamas rockets raining into Israel last year. And they have 15 seconds from the moment that the alarm goes off to make it to shelter. And it's hard to imagine living in a place where bus stops are bomb shelters. And every home within Sderot has a bomb shelter within it. And I can't imagine having 3 young children and how difficult it is to corral them at any given time, to have just 15 seconds to gather them up and run to the nearest shelter, and the thought that on any given day a missile could rain down. It's scary, and it's amazing that these people have to live with this on a daily basis. It's not something anybody should have to experience.
It's really horrific. Ben, your grandfather was the president of the JDC, and your mother's been involved with it for years. What is your special focus with the organization?
Well, my first experience with JDC in a meaningful way was in 1995 when I graduated from college, and I had the opportunity to go visit some JDC programs in Eastern Europe. We went to Bulgaria, we went to a children's camp program, and I remember spending Shabbat on bunk beds at this camp with my grandfather. One of the incredible things that I remember was watching these children, 13, 14-year-old children, who had not been allowed to experience Judaism prior to 4 or 5 years earlier, because prior to the fall of the Iron Curtain and the fall of communism, Jews weren't allowed to practice. Everything had to be done in secret. So we got to see something incredible, which was these children were teaching their parents. It was the inverse of what you would normally expect.
Right.
Children teaching their parents about what it meant to be Jewish, all because of the flame kindled by the JDC at these camps. And so one of the areas of focus for me with JDC has been the programs for children, programs for young adults, and programs for children in need, or the so-called Ashalim program. Because to me, those are high-impact areas where JDC makes a huge impact, not just on the people, but also on multiple generations that flow from them. So I think helping these kids, who in turn are ultimately teaching their parents in some respects and making ripple effects in others, is unbelievably powerful.
It is, and it sounds like you're very passionate about it. Jonathan, you're, as the president of Temple Judea, you have a lot of responsibilities, and some are outreach opportunities, and you're very effective. What do you do in terms of outreach?
I think it's important to set an example in the community, both for other members of the community and for my family and for my kids. And so I'm very involved with Temple Judea. I'm the president. My mother was the founding president of Temple Judea, and I think synagogue life is very important in our community. But there's other aspects of the community as well that are important to be involved with, and the Federation and the JDC are one example. That I don't want to be so limited in one area. I like to get out and try and do different things. And the Federation has given me the opportunity to both be involved with an organization that affects the community locally, but also affects the world. It affects so many people around the world that are often forgotten. And it's important that we don't forget, and that we make sure that when we're living our ordinary lives here today, that there are a lot of people out there who are suffering, and there's great work to be done elsewhere in the world, not just here in Palm Beach County.
There definitely does. One last question, Ben. What is the ambassador program for the JDC?
The ambassador program is an opportunity for people to get involved in the JDC, to learn about the great programs, to be supportive of those programs, but without the enormous time commitment, financial commitment, resource commitment that's typically involved in being at the board level. Now, taking a step back, JDC used to be the best kept secret in the Jewish world. It was the best kept secret because it did all kinds of incredible, important work, but it also had to be done with a measure of confidentiality and a measure of secrecy because of the nature of the diplomatic work behind the scenes. Well, that was great, but it also worked at a time when the federation system was able to provide full funding for the JDC's needs. Unfortunately, as the needs for world Jewry have expanded, and as the resources for federations to allocate to Israel and overseas have shrunk, that ratio has shifted dramatically. Today, the JDC spends close to $400 million, and less than $50 million comes from core funding from federations. So as a result, it's become very important for JDC to transition from the best kept secret in the Jewish world to a vital program that makes life-saving impact that more and more people know about. The Ambassador Circle program is an opportunity for people to help, to get involved, to make an impact with their time, with their money, with their resources, to help these vital programs at a time when those programs need more help than ever before.
Incredible idea. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We're now going to speak with Alan Gill.
Oh, what a pleasure it is, Alan Gill, CEO, boss man of the JDC, to see you here. We've been together for so many years. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm hardly a boss man.
No, but you're in charge.
When you work for a global Jewish organization, you have many bosses. And
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but meanwhile, I saw the first part of the program was so encouraging because he had two people who are so involved with the Federation and with the JDC, which is wonderful. It's the future. It's 100 years. The JDC is 100 years old. I mean, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
What is basically the mission of the JDC? I think it's good for our audience to understand.
Sure. The mission of the JDC, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, is to put into play, to operationalize global Jewish responsibility based on the Talmudic precept in Hebrew of Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lezeh, that all Jews are responsible one for another. And that's the mission. That is what we have been doing for 100 years. Wherever and whenever a Jew is in need, JDC is there if that community itself doesn't have the means to provide for that Jew.
Yeah, but as Susan said earlier, it's one of the largest organizations in the world. You stretch around the whole globe. How do you manage that? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
Oh, if it were easy, we wouldn't call it work. We would call it
That's
strictly
true.
fun. Now, I love what I do, but it's very important that we do it in a way that is highly organized, highly efficient, and most importantly, successful.
Yeah.
So, we work today, we touch Jews and others in our non-sectarian programs in over 70 countries in the world.
Yeah.
And we have a global operation headquartered out of New York, with our program operation headquartered out of Jerusalem, because about 85% of our program budget today is managed and led outside of Israel. We work in Israel. We work in Israel. We work in the former Soviet Union, across 11 time zones, Central and Eastern Europe, Africa and Asia. And we work also, and those are with Jews, we work in non-sectarian environments. So for example, we're in the Philippines now, where we have just raised throughout America $1.8 million to help those who helped us 60 years ago when our people were struggling. And they took in 1,305 Jewish souls in the Philippines and saved many lives beyond that as well, of non-Jews. And so we are helping them. So our operations there are supervised in our global headquarters in New York. And so we have an executive staff and we have committees of our board that make sure that we're doing the job right.
You know, I remember when Argentina was having a particularly difficult time financially. I mean,
Right.
the bottom dropped out economically. The banks were closed. JDC went in and literally turned everything around.
Right.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
How do they have that ability to do that, to quickly bring everything together and make it right? I mean, it's got to be some enormous staff or pre-planning. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, it was not an enormous staff that
wasn't?
we had. No, it was a small group. The strength of JDC is to move fast, turn on a dime, and to identify local partners with whom we can do the work. So in Argentina, they had a very strong Jewish community, and it's still a very strong Jewish community in a country with over 200,000 Jews.
Yeah.
They had a very strong history. It was impossible to see how fast the depression, and it was a severe depression, it was not a recession. In fact, the historian, the economists, if you read the history books today, are saying that the depression they suffered was approximately 3 times greater than the Great Depression of the U.S.
Yeah, it was tremendous.
It was tremendous, and it was an 80% middle-class Jewish community. And it was almost completely self-reliant. JDC was involved there and had a staff there, but the staff was minimal, and the staff was involved in helping to teach and train the Jewish community to improve its work. All of a sudden, the bottom dropped out, because we know that with an 80% middle-class Jewish community, their savings are going to run out after they lose their jobs fairly quickly. So we went from personally taking care of no Jews directly to, in 3 years, 36,000. And we ramped up and raised $16 million to do that. How did we do it? Well, your wonderful community of Palm Beach, through the Jewish Community Federation, was one of the first checks we received, I remember, of $300,000.
You're absolutely right. Good for you. Okay, nice plug, but it's true.
It's absolutely true,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm down here now. I'm down here. Of course, I love to see you, Barbara, and of course, I love to help to spread the word of the work that we do together in your wonderful show. But I'm here to strengthen our partnership with the Palm Beach Jewish Community Federation.
On that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with the remainder of our program right after this brief message.
Thousands of community members come together through programs and services provided by Federation and our local partner agencies to create a vibrant and vital community in Palm Beach County. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together. Federation and our overseas partners support the resurgence of Jewish life in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. We also provide humanitarian assistance wherever Jews encounter poverty and crisis. Community, like every gift, counts. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together.
Welcome back to Mosaic, and welcome back again to you. You know, prior to the break, we were talking about JDC's work in Argentina and the remarkable turnaround that took place because of the efforts of JDC. The problem is, 100 years, part of that time, we were working sub rosa. A lot of the work we did was rescue work. So we were quiet and very limiting in terms of how much we exposed what we were doing. So a lot of people don't know about the extraordinary work that JDC does. As a matter of fact, today you were lecturing at a business and professional division of the Federation's young people in order to really explain what JDC is. Is that a concern of yours?
It is a concern, and that's why during this 100th year of our existence, we are ramping up telling the story. And we just had phenomenal meetings in Washington where the Vice President and the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, other leading members of Congress and diplomats were there. We have taped it. We will get it out. We are doing a much better job of being not the best kept secret.
Yeah, well, that was a problem. Actually, literally, you were at one time known as the 911 of the Jewish world.
Correct.
Because anytime there was a problem, they turned to the JDC.
Right.
I'm talking about secular people, too. I mean,
Sure.
there hasn't been a tragedy that's taken place. Like you talked about, you were there in the Philippines.
In the Philippines.
You wrote a beautiful article about it.
Thank you.
And we're there helping.
Right.
They also don't know that the kind of work that we do in Israel is interesting because what we do in Israel, the government so approves it that they share sometimes the cost. Would you explain that?
Sure. Our secret of success in Israel is that we bring relatively small amounts of money to the table. And because, thank goodness, Israel today is the startup nation, that the programs that we in the government of Israel does for the left behind nation, the 36.5% of the kids who are living in poverty today, etc., we are the ones who hothouse a program. We experiment, as a nonprofit can do, with the risk capital. We expand the program, and then to scale it up nationwide, the government steps in. So we are always a minority share, a small minority share, of every program that we run on behalf of the Society of Israel.
Yeah, but basically you initiate the program.
We initiate. We research a problem.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah. For example, we have a program called PACT, Parents and Children Together. It was started about 14 years ago. The Palm Beach Federation joined in in the community of Ramla for Ethiopian Israeli preschool age kids.
Yeah.
Why did we start it?
I have I was just looking at this.
You have
I have the
that.
pamphlet, but explain it. It's very
Why did
interesting.
we start it? Because, as you said, sub rosa, now it's not classified. JDC went in and helped to lead the rescue of Ethiopian Jews in 1991 under the Mengistu regime that had denied these Jews their dream of making Aliyah, of coming to Israel. And after that, everybody dealt with the first generation. How do we settle these 14,500 people in the midst of what was the greatest Aliyah Israel had experienced since the onset of statehood, while former Soviet Jews were rushing in? So it wasn't that they got lost in the shuffle, it's that how much can the society and the government do? So about 4 or 5 years later, we noticed that the kids were not going to preschool. And we know from our kids and grandchildren that preschool is not babysitting.
No,
it
it's
is
crucial.
preschool.
That's exactly right.
It is math, reading, readiness, and social development that's key. So we have a wonderful applied social research institute called the Myers JDC Brookdale Institute. And we did some research. And we found that 97% of the preschool-age Ethiopian Israeli children were not in preschool. We also found that 75% of their parents were not yet literate. Forget Hebrew, in Amharic, their native language.
Yeah.
We also learned that 45% of them, the parents, could not carry on a basic Hebrew conversation. So we said it doesn't take a lot to understand that if we leave these children at home without the stimuli and without working with the parents to help them to reinforce preschool learning, by the time they get into first grade, they're going to be way behind.
Way behind. Yeah.
So we created a program modeled but not copied on the Head Start program. And we adapted it, and we called it Parents and Children Together. And I can explain why in a minute if you want to drill down on that. We started with 820 children in Beersheba, and today the program has 12,000 kids in 14 cities across Israel, including Ramla, Palm Beach's community, and Kiryat Yam, Boca Raton's community, and throughout the nation where the largest populations are of Ethiopian Israeli citizens. The program is mostly funded by the government. JDC and its partners are withdrawing from the funding of the program. The program is being run city to city with a national group that oversees it. And most importantly, it has significantly succeeded because we evaluate every program at closing the reading and math readiness gaps. It's an exciting venture. We hope that a generation from now it won't be needed.
You know, we got involved, my brother, who was a scientist
Right.
and a geneticist, got our family involved. He was so impressed with the fact that there was a big need. You had a country that could use this and change and transformed the whole nutritional program in Israel, coupled with the dental program,
Right.
Including an exercise program, and my daughter put together a cookbook.
She surely did. We love it.
Because it's all full of nutritional opportunities, and it's terrific. Anyway,
It is
the
terrific.
point being that that the thinking is that if you develop young, healthy Jewish minds and Jewish people, you will have a healthier nation with less impact as they get older on the social services.
Exactly.
And I tell you something, in this program, it really worked. And the government is now involved with us. So Susan, who was my co-host, was very instrumental in having this cookbook written. So I'm very proud of her, and I wanted everybody to see it. And actually, what's happening is it's going to be going worldwide.
Fantastic.
So everybody will know about the JDC, the cookbook, the nutritional program, et cetera.
That's part of our not being the best kept secret anymore, isn't it?
Right. tell me, we have a few minutes left. What do you see, Alan, as your biggest challenge at this point?
Biggest challenge we have at this point is making sure that we expand our program to reach out to young Jewish adults all over the world. Mm-hmm. We have today an unprecedented situation in the history of our people. Today, we have total global Jewish opportunity. I can talk endlessly about the challenges we face, but I'd rather focus on the opportunity. And the opportunity today is that Jews throughout the world are free to express themselves, relatively in some places where political environments are a bit different. Mm-hmm. But throughout the world, Jews are free to express themselves Jewishly, to move from country to country, and to be Jewish. Mm-hmm. And today we have a global village. Information's flat. The world is much flatter. So the whole concept that we're pursuing in a program of young Jewish adult development called Entwine, based upon the concept which comes from our sages of we are one people, intertwined, interconnected, again, coming from the Talmud of Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lezeh, that all Jews are responsible one for another. That used to be an aspirational goal. Today, it's our business plan. And so we have today 12,000 young Jewish adults that are involved in JDC. And when I say involved in JDC, in our global movement of global mutual Jewish responsibility. We want to put another digit on that. We want the next generation to feel as you and I do, and as our forebears, felt about the excitement of being Jewish. I will say that too many, since the Pew Report, and I imagine you've done interviews on that, the Pew Report talked about the problem, but the opportunity of teaching young people about what they are part of historically and what they can be part of globally is so exciting, and we've shown that it works.
And I'm telling you, it works because of you and your enthusiasm and because of the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee.
Thank you. It was my honor and pleasure and privilege, Barbara. Thank you.
This was such a wonderful program. It's so exciting to be a part of it and to learn about what this great organization does.
Yeah, and you know something? The Federation is so smart to have such a smart partner. They have two foreign partners, actually, two overseas partners, the Jewish Agency and the Joint Distribution Committee. And I have to tell you, though, I'm proud of you with your cookbook. This is terrific. I hope everybody wants to get one.
I hope they become involved because what it does for these women in terms of empowering them is quite remarkable.
Yep. I'm telling you, it's great, and I'm happy we did it. And thank you for being with us, and be with us again next week when we have another look into the Jewish world. Goodbye from Mosaic.